Welcome to the Soar Above Success podcast, where you'll learn how to soar above your competition. And now, your host, Yuri Vilk.
Hello and welcome to the Soar Above Success podcast. I'm here with Steve Baker, the CEO of Brandfolder. Steve is a self-proclaimed startup junkie. Steve's expertise is in selling technology. His previous role with Denver startup NewsGator, where he expanded their enterprise business to the Australia and New Zealand markets. His focus at Brandfolder for the past 2.5 years has been creating the source of truth for brands all over the world. Outside of work, Steve is a closet gamer, runner, and a backpacker, and a sports aficionado. He'll tell you where to find the best burritos in Denver. Now, Steve, to get things going, first off, welcome to the show. Very happy to have you here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure as well. Where can we find the best burritos in Denver? I'm very curious about this one.
Well, you're going to ask for the secret sauce right off the bat. Well, I mean, I don't usually go public with this information because I'm trying to keep it on the down low, but I'll give you some helpful hints. Okay, sure. There's a few different kind of burritos, and I think that's the first place to start. There's the handheld unit, which I feel like Chipotle and the Qdoba made famous. You're going to want to go to Illegal Pete's.
Okay.
For that unit. A lot of people know that. I'm not giving away the secrets there.
Yeah.
But for good, authentic burritos with the authentic Denver green chili, you're going to want to go to the original Chubby's.
Chubby's.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Like, wait a second, Chubby's? That doesn't sound like, a very good Mexican place. Well, it's been open for 60 years. It's family owned. It's on 38th and La Pan in Denver. And I promise you, I'll put my reputation on the line. This is the best burrito in the city.
Sure. Great. Well, I've been to Illegal Pete's. I've been to Chipotle numerous times.
Sure.
I've never heard of anyone mentioning Chubby's as a place to be, as a place for burritos.
You're lucky you found me when you did. I think it changed your life.
Now, do they have burrito bowls, or is it also like what kind of unit are we talking about here?
They have traditional Mexican fare, everything from a torta to a Mexican hamburger, burrito bowl. They'll get you set up.
Beautiful. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Maybe we can go out to lunch there one day, and you can show me around.
On me.
Awesome. So now, Steve, I know you've been doing Brandfolder, you mentioned earlier, for about 4 years now, and you've taken on multiple roles within the company. What was the whole initiation with startups? Where did you get started with the whole startup scene, and why did you choose to take this path out of all the other career paths out there?
Well, first of all, I am kind of Denver born and bred kind of a dude, and Denver, we are kind of unique in that we have a very large kind of technology base of cool young companies, disproportionate to the size of our population. And so I was lucky to grow up in Denver and be around a lot of cool technology companies. When I graduated from school, the first thing I did was get into kind of the internet service provider kind of space, and have always been selling technology since then. And with Brandfolder, I was lucky enough to get involved with some very successful Denver-based people like Luke Beatty, who's the president of AOL, or media brands at AOL, now Verizon, as well as Chris Glaudet, who is kind of runs the digital practice at Under Armour after his company was acquired, his Denver-based company called Map My Fitness. I'm not sure if you're familiar. These guys sat on our board and really came up with the original concept for Brandfolder, which was to be this directory of customer logos or company logos. And today you can go to Bing or you can go to Google, but you're going to return a bunch of old kind of content. And we wanted to be the source of truth for, the most recent kind of logos.
Sure.
And we were lucky enough to go through the Techstars program, which is a Boulder-based incubator, in 2012. And really good way to get a startup off the ground. Not only do they give you access to their entire network of people and software applications, but they actually invest in your company too. They give you some money, which is one of the hardest things for an early startup is to get funds going. So
yeah.
I was lucky enough to get in with these guys. I was, as I said, originally an angel investor in the concept. both Chris and Luke had pitched me, and really they could have pitched me on anything, and I would be in, because I really feel like it's people that you're investing in this space, and there's no finer than those two. Also, I'd mentioned Justin Anthony, who's also on our board. He owns the Matchbox in Denver and several, the Field House near Mount High Stadium, and several other. I feel like he's buying up Rhino one location at a time. And so a good base of people got us started, and really we hit. We found a really unique niche, and kind of the timing was perfect for us. Our initial, idea or vision was cool, but it was tough to monetize. Mm-hmm. About that time, the concept of digital asset management became a line item in the marketing budget of companies everywhere, of basically at all sizes, right? And it's the problem of managing large amounts of content, large amounts of brand assets.
Right.
It takes teams of people to do that. Some companies have terabytes of data spread across multiple geographies and languages and offices. And to make sure that people are getting the right content at the right time is a major problem. And the larger the company, the more syndicated the brand, the more relevant that problem is. And we stumbled across this acronym, the DAM acronym, about 2000, early 2000, or I guess late 2013, early 2014, and really decided to move in that direction. Where most of the analysts will tell you that big companies are going to move all of their digital assets out of server closets and into the cloud, and this is happening right now. Brand assets are the most valuable of those assets, and a solution like Brandfolder allows you to organize those into one source of truth, allows for a very easy distribution model when you are sharing with people inside and outside the organization, as well as providing monitoring and enforcement of that brand once those assets are out in the wild. And traditional content management solutions and traditional cloud storage solutions don't address that specific need. And so there's a huge market developing. And that's where we have kind of followed that swell, kind of rode that wave into 2016, where today digital asset management is as relevant as, other Marcom applications like, email tools and CRM and marketing automation tools like Marketo and Pardo. And it's cool to be part of it. It's cool to be in Denver. It's cool to be, to have gone through Techstars, because now we have a network of very cool people and applications that we can draw from.
Wow. So this is a dash of people that you knew, a great idea, a little bit of funding, and you had this concept that just sort of blossomed. And a little bit of timing, of course, that's always a key piece. You got to be at the right place at the right time, know the right people, and of course have the budget in it in order to handle something like this.
Yep.
That's quite a journey. It sounds very enlightening, and I'm sure other people who are trying the whole startup path, they're going to immediately start going through their phone, looking through their network, saying, who can I reach out to? Who can help me on this?
The last piece of that pie is, the guts. I'll use the PC term, the guts to leave your cush corporate job where, that's full of benefits and, everything that comes with vacation time and, being able to, not worry about paycheck to paycheck and really taking a big risk. Mm-hmm. And so that's a big piece of it. That's why everyone doesn't do it, right? I mean, everyone wants a ping pong table in their office and everyone wants to have fun and wear cool socks, but the risk to take that on your own is not something that everyone has the stomach for. And that's why it's when you see a startup come out of this market that they call a unicorn or gets a big round of funding or goes through a cool exit, it's really they've sacrificed a lot to do it, and it's cool to watch it happen.
Yeah, it takes a lot of gall, and absolutely right. You need a lot of courage to kind of dive into this, because you're going, and I know a lot of people who are kind of on the fence and they're working their corporate job or they have a great position somewhere. To give all that up to chase something that may or may not work, man, that's a huge risk. And that kind of, you could end up in a great position, or you could end up back on the streets trying to, groveling, trying to get another job. Usually
you're going to learn.
And you will also take away lessons, and that'll make you grow as an individual. More importantly, and I definitely hear that. That is definitely a challenge for most people, especially new companies out there. It's how do you manage your time effectively so that you have the right cash flow, you're managing that cash flow, and you're also building the business beyond just the day to day. And that's a real big challenge. And I guess that you're right. It takes a lot of effort, and you make a lot of sacrifices to get that going. I definitely know how that is. You're working all the time. There is vacation. What's vacation? There is no vacation. It's a matter of how bad do you want it, and how much can you proceed forward. Excuse me. So that's a great story, and I'm hearing that Brandfolder is this, it's definitely in the right position now. You guys are growing fast, and this whole concept of digital asset management wasn't really apparent to me until you actually start running it. And you're like, when people ask you for your logo, you send them an email with your logo, and after 30 or 40 of these emails, you're getting to a point where like, well, I wish there was a better solution. How did you find that pain? What was that like for you? How did you discover that this was a needed product in the marketplace?
Yeah, well, you basically hit the nail on the head. When there is the request for an asset, and it can be an asset could be a logo, a product image, a executive bio, it could be a font or a color or a slide in a deck. When there's a request for that, what would happen 5 years ago is somebody would go find that wherever it lives, and it could live in something like SharePoint or Box or some sort of shared drive inside of an organization. The discovery of that asset itself can be a challenge. And then you attach it to an email and you fire it off to the requester. Now, if it's a big file, you got to zip it up, compress it, and attach it to an email. And inevitably what happens is the person is going to come back and let you know that you sent me the wrong size, you sent me the wrong format of asset, if it's a photo or a logo, and it creates a back and forth. And that is a time suck. Right now you have two creative teams in two different companies doing a back and forth around an asset, which with a system like Brandfolder, that transaction, that interaction is seconds, right? The requester gets a link with a self-serve model. They can pull down and convert any file type they need at any size. And then the person who sent that gets analytics around what happened, once that asset went out. It changes the way that marketing teams are managing the assets that they have, right? It's important for salespeople to get access to the right assets at the right time, co-marketing partners, agencies outside the organization. It's big business. And especially for companies where it's core to their business model. If you look at somebody like an Under Armour, they have to have the right product images in front of the right online catalogs at the right time, or they lose business. So it's literally core to what they do. So companies are seeing this as a big line item, a big spend item, and so that's the problem that we're addressing. And it's only as the growth of the digital asset space gets bigger, the need for management tools is only going to get more complex. And we try to take a very creative and customer-centric UI approach to the problem, which is different than the old version of just creating feature stacks and putting it on a server in a closet. We're really trying to take a intuitive approach that takes the situation that you just described and reduces it to something that's a pleasure that takes 2 seconds and actually adds value to the business as opposed to detract a time suck.
From pain to pleasure, and you've eliminated the email back and forth, which I've already had enough of it. It's like there's a transition that has to happen because we're still kind of on that email thing. I know there's new companies like Slack that are slowing that down, and then now you have Brandfolder to kind of get people away from sending 50,000 emails about the same thing. I need this revision, this wasn't the right one, etc., and just go access it yourself, and here it is. I'm curious about these analytics that you get on the other side, though.
Yeah.
What's that like, and why would I be interested in the analytics?
Yeah, so really good question, and I'm glad you brought up Slack because it points to the integration that we've built with Slack. We're right now the only digital asset management company that has this integration. And within Brandfolder, we have a concept of an activity feed. It's a very Facebook-style look at everything happening with your brand. Somebody is downloading or viewing or forwarding a specific asset. the admins within your organization are going to have visibility into everything that's happening there. And that feed itself can run in a Slack room, which is cool. So from right within Slack, if you want to receive notification as a creative person or a marketing person, every time somebody outside the organization is interacting or downloading your brand assets, you can receive that notification. Similar to the way you can receive other notifications through Slack. And the key there is being able to make decisions on the fly. If you know the way your brand is being used out in the wild, you can make decisions on the type of assets that you make available to people. And it also allows you to enforce the use of that brand. You want to know if you've gone through a recent redesign, someone like OpenTable or Instagram who's changed their look and feel recently. You want to know, what companies out there are still using the old assets. And this kind of tool can provide reporting and analytics on who's using the brand correctly, who's using it incorrectly. And then now you're bringing in a creative integrity use case. You've got legal implications for people misusing your brand, all that can be tracked through kind of one solution. Getting it outside of the shared servers, getting all of this content off of email makes, the world a better place. And there's an ecosystem of cool applications that are changing the way that people are doing business today. And this old model of having these big, bulky applications living on a server is literally going away. These big, SAP and PeopleSoft implementations, that model, there's still use cases that exist around those packages, but the implementation and the types of tools that people are using are very different. Things are moving to the cloud, making implementation just so much easier, right? Applications like Salesforce are taking over the world. You see the building that they're putting in downtown San Francisco, I think it's really indicative of their place in the market. Like that is going to be a $20 billion company in the next couple of years. And we understand that there's an ecosystem of these cloud-based applications that are well adopted within the enterprise and the mid-market. And we know that if we are a siloed application that don't talk to any of those, that we will die on the vine. And so it's very important for us that our integration story is tight with all of these marketing automation, CRM, and design tools that people have already adopted. And, that's Slack is one of them. And it's one of those apps that every time you use it, you kind of get just a warm, fuzzy feeling.
Isn't that weird?
Thing when I use DocuSign, right? Instead of having to print something out and sign it, scan it, fax it, all of that goes away with 2 clicks. You just get that fuzzy feeling. Same thing with Brandfolder, right? If you're sharing 500 product images, you used to have to FedEx a hard drive to do that. Now you're clicking 2 buttons and the warm fuzzy feeling is with you again,
That's impressive. That warm fuzzy feeling on the web, I love it because you've changed the whole concept of making it a frustrating experience to go on the computer and do whatever it is that you need to do on a daily basis, especially if you're the business owner. There's just so many things that you're managing, and you just made it super simple. And it comes down to time value. How much do you value your time in order to outsource these certain responsibilities? Because at the end of the day, almost every company that I know, every startup that I know that has worked in any digital space whatsoever uses a significant amount of products or apps that are based on a monthly continuity program, but they save an enormous amount of time and streamline the business and just totally transform the way you operate. Especially with you get your time back. That's the most important piece.
Right.
A question I have for you in regards to the analytics. So there's an asset out there in the web. Somebody's using it incorrectly. They have my old logo, and they're no longer we're no longer using that one. How do I know if it's just an image, or is it an embedded image, or is it something that they download and then they put it up there? How do I know? How can I track that based on the technology behind it? How do we know that it's out there, and how can we reprimand the situation?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and that's one of the challenges. Is once you send that vector file logo off, there's no way to know if somebody is just going to take a screenshot of that, manipulate the screenshot, add colors to it, make slight variations to your logo that takes it outside of the creative guidelines or the usage guidelines. So Great question. And the way we handle that is we use image recognition software across the web.
Wow.
We actually will crawl the web. Once it's out of our control, it's downloaded off Brandfolder, or somebody's actually attached it to an email somewhere and sent it off. Eventually it's going to get used, and we're going to use our API to recognize the actual images in whatever format or context they pop up with on the web. And that's important. And so instead of just finding exact searches with, like you would with a Google or a Bing search, we will find variations. If somebody's augmented the logo in some small way, changed a color, stretched it out a little bit, our brand monitor tool, which is what we call it, will actually find that. And then we can report back on who's misusing and where it's being used. And there's so many cool use cases. My favorite is the Broncos, because they are obviously my favorite football team. They also happen to be the world champions. And one of our favorite customers. They have gone through a helmet change every couple of years over the last 50 years. And we have a cool slide on a deck where we show kind of the progression of what the Broncos have done. And even this year, they increased the size of the horse on the helmet just ever so slightly. Now, there are thousands of co-marketing partners that use that horse logo on their website, in their brochures, across print media. And so that's a major operation to, first of all, change, to reach out manually to every one of those people to let them know that there's a new logo design. And then more importantly, after it's taken place and the season is on, they want to know that the correct co-marketing partners or 9 News, when they're showing, the highlights that night, that they're using the correct brand assets. And so we can give them a good distribution model to the thousands of people that are using those logos, as well as monitor, once they're out in the wild, who is using them correctly and incorrectly. For them, it's a revenue model. To use that logo, I think it's, a $50,000 or $100,000 investment. You have to pay them to use the logo. And if there's people using it, in an unauthorized way, we can show them a list of those people who they can, go after at that point, or cease and desist, or revenue, or whatever they want to do with it.
Sure.
And it's the short answer to your question is using image recognition as opposed to exact match searches like you would see in the traditional search engines.
Now that works really well for something on the web. What if it's a printed logo, or what if they're using that asset that's already kind of gone to the published area? Now, is it something that you separate yourself from the brand at that point, and you no longer, you can't really help them at that point? Or is there...
Once it's printed on a document, then we're kind of out of the loop.
Right.
But we will work with different companies around different brand enforcement use cases.
Okay.
There's really two. They break into 2 categories: a creative services use case, where the person who created the art on the logo wants to make sure that it's used correctly and against guidelines. And the other side of it is a legal use case, where companies don't want their trademarks being used incorrectly, and they want to know when it's happening. Beyond those things, and we're a web-based, SAS application, so we're really keen on usage on the web. You can do things like take a picture of an asset that you see in context, and then use our brand monitor to see if that, it fits within brand guidelines. There's some things you can do around that, but mostly we're monitoring assets that exist in some sort of public web format.
Mm-hmm. As long as it's available on the web, your crawler will determine if it's accurate and it's the most up-to-date image. I know a lot of companies who go into business, they're not actually considering brand management as something that, it's not even really something that they would ever consider until they get into this, co-marketing space, or they start having people asking them to use or represent their company in some capacity. A lot of these points that you made, I would have never even thought that this is something that you have to consider, because if your message is unclear, or if you have a broken message out there, it could really change things from the user's experience perspective, from them seeing what kind of company you are. And if somebody's mismanaging it or using it, and it could be just a non-malicious thing. It's not something intentional. This is what they had, and this is what they've been using, and that's so key, because I normally don't ever think about those things, and most business owners probably don't want to be thinking about those things. That's why you have developed an algorithm to make it think for you, so you don't have to do that. going back a couple years now, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have questions about funding and how did you get started with this?
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned Techstars earlier, but what was that process like before Brandfolder existed? How did this concept initially start developing? Were you the person who actually developed the first sort of alpha version of it? Just walk us through the progression of Brandfolder and how it came to be today.
Got it. Yeah, that's a really good question. The idea, I mentioned Chris and Luke earlier, and the idea came about on a fishing trip in an RV, and these are the kind of folks, because they are high-level executives in their companies, they're doing a lot of speaking engagements.
Sure.
And when you do that, you have to share your bio, which includes kind of before the podcast, what we have to do. Here's my picture, or my headshot, here's a brief description, here's where I've appeared in the press, all the things that, come with the bio. Mm-hmm. And, that's a pain, right? Hey, you sent me the wrong headshot size. Hey, do you have the vector file or the PNG version of that? And then you're sending separate files for the actual bio. And the original idea came, there's got to be a better way to do this, right? Traditional email, traditional cloud storage do not accomplish this issue. And it's, for them, they thought, executives all over the earth have to be dealing with this problem. So what they did was they put a team together, and they've got a group of super angels, right? I think we have 25 or so original angels that gave investments ranging from $10,000 to $50,000 as a convertible note to kind of get the business started. About that time, we got accepted into the Techstars program, and which kicked us off, right? We learned how to be a business, how to, become a C Corp, and how to, account and build a revenue model, and how to build an e-commerce model on the site, and, built the guts of the business. Paul Arterburn was the technical co-founder that they brought in, mm-hmm. who, he's a full stack developer who built, or basically wrote the first line of code for the product. He's still with the organization today, building code right now with his headphones on. He is constantly coming up with new concepts and code, but at that point, we had to raise money, right? We came up with this concept that we decided we wanted to be, we wanted to go upstream into the mid-market, and be a legitimate digital asset management platform for enterprise companies. And so to do that, we had to scale a team out, and we knew that. And so one of our original angels turned into, or created a fund to really double down on the business. The board was really happy with what we were doing. We had a really good revenue model built, and we knew with some money and we could scale it. So we did it wasn't a Series A round, it was a Series Seed round of $2 million in January of 2014. This was, after we had, January of 2015. Sure. This is, we had operated as for a year to see if we could test the model, we could scale the company. And we thought new money in at that point was fairly low risk for our super angel turned fund manager. And so we did the deal and have had wildfire growth since. We built out a team of 20 people, salespeople, the best development team on earth, as well as a very sharp marketing and content team, which is really important for us because we're branding people. Yeah. Have to sell to creatives and marketing people. So our content, the way we look online, the way our application feels is all very important. So we built out the team and really attacked the space. There were only a small number of companies in the space at the time we entered it, in this DAM space. And we took a very different approach, right? We talked about how companies in the olden days built these big appliances that lived in a server closet that were a list of features. And even some of the new SaaS-based applications out there are that, right? It's just they're trying to hit a feature checklist. And we see that all the time. We flipped that, and we took this, in a different direction. And it's from the user experience. Everything that we do, from, designing the application to our invoicing process to the way that we, build out our office goes through the lens of, visual elegance and user simplicity. Yeah. we want to create an experience where the first time a user hits our software, they require no training. And that's very different than any other enterprise scale application that you're used to running into. And so that allowed us as a young company with limited funds to compete with the likes of the Adobe Experience Manager. People can select Brandfolder with a straight face over this big, bulky dinosaur that lives in the market. And we've been able to prove that out over the last 2 years, to the point now where we are, it's a weird thing, but a profitable software company. And that's a metric that we are chasing very hard at, something we're very proud of. And during this quarter, we're crossing over into that world of actually making more money than we spend. And it's fun given like where we came from, making people coming over from really cool opportunities with other companies to make sacrifices to do this and to see it work out. Now, I'm not saying that we're a unicorn and it's over and our exits happen, but given our position right now, we're positioned in the next couple years to really lead this space, the cloud-based digital asset management space. And it's a testament to the team that we built and to the original founding team that came up with the concept.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite a journey you've gone through, and it's from the humble beginnings to where you are now. Congratulations! I mean,
we're still in humble beginnings.
Well, yeah. Well, you guys have definitely, you said, crossed that line, and this is where it's getting exciting. This is where you get to finally, make those moves and expand the operation. And I really hope you'll never become one of those big dinosaurs in the room. And stay on that cutting edge, because the site is so clean, the experience is so friendly, and that's a testament to the amount of time you actually put into the UI UX flow. I know a lot of companies who really ignore that piece and say, oh well, who cares about the customers? Really, it's on the other end, the customers are really what's driving the business. Yeah. If you don't have a good experience for the customers, they're just going to leave.
Sure. It's easy to build features.
Right.
I mean, there's developers everywhere that can build features, quote unquote.
Right.
But creating user experiences it's a different skill set, and it requires a different kind of resource, a different kind of person to build that out.
Totally.
And that's why we always say that we are built for creatives by creatives, and that's different than basically every other software company that I've ever seen.
Yeah, and that's definitely a great approach to have. It's like you're relating to the end user on a very personal level, and that's where you get that fuzzy feeling. You get that you're hitting that you're strumming those emotional strings, and you're getting that person to actually be like, wow, it makes my day. It's a pleasure to do this. You mentioned speakers, you mentioned companies. These are all segments of your market, I presume.
Yeah. I like to say anybody who cares about the way they're perceived on the web needs a Brandfolder, which really is a broad list of vertical markets. We've seen really good traction, and I mentioned professional sports. We have, I think, 30 professional teams across the major leagues that would tell you that we're the source of truth for their brand. Yeah. We have done very good in consumer packaged goods, in the retail space, in food and beverage. Really, the use cases are similar across those brands, right? At Pepsi, the marketing team is getting the same request for logos as somebody at Under Armour. And they're different kinds of companies. They sell differently, different models. But the fact that their brand is their most valuable asset is the same across basically every vertical market. And so we're seeing really good traction in big technology companies like Salesforce.com. Use Brandfolder. Companies like Under Armour, that I've already mentioned, are using us. The Denver Broncos, and then if you look in the retail space or the retail brand space, companies like L'Oreal and DKNY, would tell you that we're the source of truth for their assets, and it's a different use case, but every vertical experiences this, and we thought it was crazy when we went through our initial kind of research for the company that there was no standard for what we consider to be the most valuable asset of a company, and that's their brand. There's no standard for managing and protecting it. And so, we set out to do that.
There's a lot of companies that say, oh, you have to niche down, find one market and go after that market. And then once you've conquered that market, you go after the next market. It doesn't sound like you actually did that. You kind of did a different approach where you found a universal issue. across all verticals, regardless of whether they're in retail, whether they're a software company, whether they're a professional sports team, and you recognize that was a problem that all these people are dealing with, and there you are. You have this gigantic market at your fingertips now.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's the use. It's very driven on that pain point, which is very consistent across, as you said, every kind of industry is experiencing the pain point. Of course, there's nuances across industries and different things that different industries find important, but that's, for us, it's not, I hate the term shotgun approach, because a lot of companies will, we're everything to everyone. That's definitely not the case. We're really focused on, that specific use case, the problem of managing large numbers of complex digital assets. And, the larger, more syndicated the brand, the bigger the problem.
Yeah, and you're right. It's a shotgun approach in terms of verticals, but it's definitely the consistent pain point exists everywhere. It's not just one company that experiences this. So maybe the verticals, you're attacking a lot of different verticals, or you're serving all those different markets. But at the same time, it's all, again, the issue is the same. They're all dealing with the same problem, and you're here. Hey, we have this amazing solution. It's called Brandfolder, and that's really, it's remarkable to hear this. Completely different than what you normally hear with startups. Is we serve, we specifically work with jewelry stores, and that's our SaaS application focuses on that. And you get that sliver of the market, but here you've been able to broaden that out and go across multiple verticals, and thus, there's your profitability. You've virtually an untapped market to go after here in the United States as well as internationally. But are there plans to go international? Have you done so already?
Yeah, done so already. 20% of our revenue comes from sources outside of the U.S. And it's, we're out on the web, right? And so people can find us however they find us, and it's software that can be deployed in any kind of environment. And we can do some white labeling things to accommodate, localization. So we have customers in Kuwait, we have customers in Australia and New Zealand and Thailand, and I'm just name dropping countries now. I know that doesn't mean anything, but it's cool to have customers in places outside of Denver, because when you're a startup, obviously we have kind of a cult following on the Front Range, right, from Boulder to Colorado Springs. We have a number of every brewery in town, and the Broncos, and that's cool, but expanding outside of that market is great domestically, and then having adoption internationally too is validation for what we're doing. Very little effort from a marketing perspective has gone in that direction, yet they are coming to us, requesting the quote, talking to our sales team, and we're happy to do demos at 3 a.m. to accommodate timeframes.
Right on, and then you get more vacation spots too.
That's right.
It's a lot of fun to have that international presence as well. And again, like most of I know like there's still a lot of opportunity everywhere. The world is really just turning on to, believe it or not, the world is still there's a lot of people who haven't even seen the internet yet, and who haven't even started running any sort of enterprise business at any capacity. So as the world progresses through this, and especially as mobile applications get more developed, this is just going to become more and more prevalent and more needed in the market. So you're in a perfect position. Wow, what a story! Now, Steve, I got one last question for you, and I'm sure there's this is a question on others' minds as well. When you mention you're building that expert team, I guess we can wrap things up with this. What is that one takeaway that you can give us that when you're building that expert team? How do you find these people? Where are they located? How do you vet them? And what does that process look like for Brandfolder?
Yeah, good question. And that's the most important thing, right? If I'm talking to other startup people, that's the key indicator of your success. That's the team you're able to build. And you have to change when you're a startup and you raise money. You change your hats immediately from fundraiser to recruiter, and you learn quickly that to be able to build out the team quickly changes everything. But you don't want to. You've heard this term: hire slow, fire fast, where you really want to make sure that not only are they a skill set fit for what you're trying to do with your organization, but also a culture fit. Mm-hmm. I think that's almost equal parts importance in this pie of recruiting. Make people that will fit within your team, but also the startup kind of culture in general, right? It's very different than probably what they're going to be used to if they're not coming from another startup company. So putting a lot of importance on that culture piece. We've gone so far as to create a non-management culture committee that actually, plans the fun stuff in the office, plans everything culture related, all of our philanthropic stuff goes through them. And so it's important. Like, we really look closely at culture as an indicator if somebody will succeed long-term with the company. And then also, you've got to look at your cash flow situation, right? You have to build a team that is willing to, make sacrifices in the early stage to build something great, because you're likely not going to be able to pay as much as, some of the brick and mortar companies in town. So you have to have people that align with your vision and really try to, understand what you're doing long term and are on board with that. It's not just employees that you're looking for. Typically with startups, you're giving away equity and options. So you want people that act like owners and not just, I call them clock punchers, which is the worst thing in the startup world, right?
Horrible.
We are building something together here. You have ownership in the company, so do I. And so whatever that exit event is, we all have a stake in this game, all 20 of us. So finding the right people is crucial. And if admitting when you didn't find the right person, right? It's nobody wants to fire anyone. It's the worst thing on earth. It's the worst part of your week, guaranteed. But identifying that and admitting when you've made a bad decision on the hiring side is crucial, because that's your biggest expense, right? Your people expense above all else, even technology and your rent and all that. Your people expense is huge. So making the right decisions and knowing when you've made a mistake and doing that quickly is crucial.
Yeah, and finding that if you find the wrong person that comes from a corporate background or has a very heavy, sort of rigid experience in their work life, getting them into a startup is a shocker. And especially, they're probably not going to be too, wait, beer on tap? What do I do with that?
Yeah.
It's one of those, you flip it on its head. It's a very odd situation to be in. But hey, startup culture is awesome in that regard. You have that freedom, you have the flexibility. And so not only are you taking the whole concept of asset management, brand asset management, and flipping on its head, you're also taking the whole work-life balance and culture aspect, and you're flipping that on its head. It's no longer you come into work and you drudge being there, and you cannot wait to go home and finally unwind. Yeah. When you're in a startup mode, there is no real unwinding. You're always in that kind of fun, creative environment where you're totally embracing the full mental capacity of everybody and acknowledging them for it. And they also have stake in the company, which is the best part. Their success is your success and vice versa.
Right.
It's been, wow, what a journey you've taken us on, Steve. We're getting very close to time here. And I just want to thank you again for, sharing this expertise with us. It's been, there's so many takeaways. My head is absolutely spinning right now with ideas and different concepts that you've kind of injected into my brain during this short little chat that we've had. I just want to thank you so much again for sharing your expertise and sharing your vision and your journey. This has been a heck of a journey for you guys, and you guys are gonna crush it. It sounds like you guys are going to the moon and beyond, and This is just the beginning.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I appreciate you having me on your podcast. You guys are doing amazing things as well. I also look forward to getting you guys into your own Brandfolder here in the near future.
All right. I look forward to seeing it. I've seen some examples. They look really, really cool, really stunning, and super easy to use. I'm sure, with my technical background, it's just going to be a breeze. I can't wait. And we'll go ahead and put the link for Brandfolder on the bottom of the podcast. You'll be able to see it on the YouTube channel as well as on the podcast page itself. Again, Steve, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your knowledge with us. I look forward to hoping maybe we can have you back again sometime when you completely dominated the market and you become this giant guru it's going to be an exciting time. So keep at it, and again, I appreciate it, and you have a wonderful day. Have a great rest of your week.
All right, Yuri, cheers.
Cheers.